At this time, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Perry Carnegie Library Board. Today's date is January 19th, 2021, and it is 6:15 p.m. Dixie, if you would call roll, please.
Kolar.
Here.
Dubek. Here. Ahern.
Here.
Brown. Here. White.
Here.
Oral. Lines. Straw.
Here. I do declare a quorum. Tonight's invocation is going to be by Mayor Streller. Mayor Streller, thank you.
Thank you. Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening to ask you to bless this meeting. We ask you to be with us so we can make intelligent decisions for our community. But above and beyond what happens here this evening, we just want it to be about you, Lord. We want everything to glorify you and have you pleased with our decision. But this evening I'd like to reach out to you and ask you to put your hand on our nation tomorrow. Tomorrow may be one of the biggest days in history. I just pray that everything goes peaceful and that your plan is enacted. Whatever it is, Lord, we don't know, but when the sun goes down tomorrow, we'll know that you had your hand in it. We will trust in you and we will believe in you. I just ask that you get us all home safe this evening, and we glorify you. Pray this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Mayor Streller. The first item is the consent agenda. There are two items listed under that agenda item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any comments? Roll call, please.
Kolar.
Yes.
Dubek.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Brown. Yes. White.
Yes.
Straw.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move down to item 4. Are there any comments from anyone assembled here tonight, I should say? Seeing none, we'll move down to item 5, presentation of the oral quarterly report on library usage and statistics on the Perry Carnegie Library by Pam Reed, our head librarian. Pam?
Hi. The Harry Potter-based literacy event from Thanksgiving week through the end of December. We handed out 224 packets, which included a treat, a craft, and Harry Potter memorabilia. We had an alternative for those who are not a fan of Harry Potter, but only 2 were requested. We have our book sale outside in nice weather. The sale is on the honor system and it works. Funds are just dropped in the book drop. We are finding that having a library operating as a to-go library works out well for the adults. Our adults are good about having title series and authors in mind or trust the staff to collect their books. They're so cute. They call up and they say, this is a quote, tell Bobby to get my books. Savannah has made a rolling cart of book covers outside with young adult titles. Kids can pick their cards, put them inside with the library card information, and we can check out their books. There are 2 great ways to select books for any age group. We buy many bestsellers, so an Amazon search can provide titles that we own. If we don't own, we will consider purchasing recent titles that will circulate in Perry. If a book is more than 3 months old, we can request through interlibrary loan for a $2 fee to help pay postage. Another way to search titles is to go to our website, click on the catalog, and watch the scroll via perry.lib.ok.us. You can Google it too, just Perry Carnegie Library, Oklahoma. Click on the title to read the blurb. You can enter your library card number and phone number to place a hold. You can use the same URL to check out our ebooks available through Overdrive. Ebook usage is increasing steadily, and every month Perry has new readers use Overdrive. So some statistics. In 2020, we checked out or renewed 7,944 materials via Overdrive. We checked out or renewed 12,262 physical items. We just finished up with a 2-year grant for $14,000 at the end of 2020. The grant was for kids and teen reading materials and supplies. The grant was from an anonymous source that previously gave us $29,000. We added 1,765 items to our collection.
Thank you, Pam. Any questions or comments or anything from the board? I'd just like to say, Pam, like on behalf of the board here and the community, thank you for what you do. This is, I know, it's been a very challenging time for a library that can't be open, but you guys have done some great creative things. I know the community is appreciative of the creativity you had to use to encourage people to continue to read, and you're still operating.
Yes.
So, thank you so much for
Thank
that. Thank you. Moving on to item 6, is there any new business tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to item 7, a motion on adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please, Dixie.
Kolar.
Yes.
Gilbeck. Yes. Ahern.
Yes.
Brown. White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes. Thank you, Brian.
You bet.
Okay, I'd like to call to order our special meeting of the Prairie Municipal Authority, January 19th, year 2021 at 6:20. Roll call, please.
Kolar.
Here.
Bond. Gilbeck. Here. Ahern.
Here.
Brown. White.
Here.
Morrow. Wines. Stroller.
Here. I do declare a quorum. Item number 1 is the consent agenda. There's one item, it would be the minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Roll call, please.
Kolar.
Yes.
Gilbeck. Yes. Ahern.
Yes.
Brown. White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes. Item 4, comments from those assembled pertaining to the items on the PMA agenda. Hearing none, we'll move to item 5, proclamation, accommodations, reports, and inquiries by the governing body. Hearing none, we'll move to item 6, any new business this evening? Item 7, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Kolar.
Yes.
Gilbeck. Yes. Ahern.
Yes.
Brown. White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to call to order a special meeting of the City Council of the City of Perry, January 19th, year 2021 at 6:22. Roll call, please.
Kolar.
Here.
Oops, sorry. By Kickout Hall. He likes to jump. Bond. Gilbeck. Here. Ahern.
Here.
Brown. Here. White.
Here.
Morrow. Wines. Stroller.
Here. I do declare a quorum here also. Item number 1 is the consent agenda. There are 6 items.
Make a motion to approve all 6 items on the consent agenda.
Roll call, please.
Kolar.
Yes.
Gilbeck. Yes. Ahern.
Yes.
Brown. Yes. White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes. Item 4, call those assembled pertaining to the items on the city agenda. Hearing none, we'll move to item 5, proclamations, commendations, reports, and inquiries by the governing body. We'll move to item 6, city manager's report, monthly update.
Thank you, Mayor. January 5th of this year, we began to reach out to 150 commercial properties within the city, asking them to participate in a commercial survey. This is for our CUP program, which is the Competitive Utility Program. This survey, we need at least 30 to get what our goal is. And so far, we're not quite there yet. So I know that Autumn Jardot, our billing clerk, has reached out, email or personally visited or even called some of these 150 commercial properties. So it's important that we have those surveys back. You can mail them, you can email them to Autumn at billing@cityofperryok.com. That's billing@cityofperryok.com. If you'd rather for this to be anonymous, then just drop them in the drop box at City Hall. That'd be great. It's very important that we have this. The CUP program that we get is a good good program, not only financially, but also lets us know how we're doing as well. I do have a bit of bad news. We've been dealing with Green Farms for well over a year now. They have backed out of their purchase of 5 acres out in the North Industrial Park, so we're disappointed about that. I reached out to see if there was some reason or something. Is it infrastructure or what it could be? And I've gotten no response back. So we're disappointed that sometimes that's the way it happens. You know, you just work and work and work and nothing happens. So we'll move on to the next deal. So, Mayor, that's it. Council, any questions?
Questions for Larry?
Parker?
No.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
Item number 7, Chief Financial Officer's Report. We have the wonderful Meredith with us this evening.
Here. And I really understand what you say about work and work and work and work and then nothing happens. You should try working with Rex. All right, I'm joking. All right, you've got
This
December.
is recorded, don't you?
You won't ever watch it.
Shall we bring your soapbox out?
You've got December numbers in front of you. We're halfway through the year. So focusing on cash, we've got about $5.4 million in unrestricted funds. We've got about $4.4 million of restricted funds. That leaves us down about 2% from where we were this time last month. Totals about $167,000. If you look through your check register, you could see right off the top, there's about a $97,000, I think 97 is the right, bill that we paid out related to Keiko and the work that's being done out there. So really just the timing in the payment out on that specific invoice. It was just a large one for this month is the reason I bring it up. Any questions on cash before I move to budget to actuals? Okay. General fund budget to actual December, we're 50%. So when you look at these percents of budget, we should be around 50%. You'll see, and I'm sure Russ has pointed this out multiple times, but over in the general government itself, our other income is already at 90% of budget. Included in that line item is about $375,000 of our CARES reimbursement that we received earlier this year, which I want you to keep that number in mind, $375,000, okay? As we work through these financials, you'll see Parks and Recs is up just a little bit, expense-wise related to Camp Tandaco, which is a grant-funded project. And sales tax itself, which is typically a big focus of this community. When you look at sales tax numbers, you'll see that we're at 75% of budget. You all know when we went through the budget process, we were kind of blind. We were scared. We were looking at what the economy was saying, what the city of Oklahoma City was doing. So we took a real haircut on what we budgeted. So the fact that we're 75% is fantastic. It means that we didn't hit the bottom that we were expecting to hit. I do want to point out that we are still not in the greatest place because the majority of our sales and use tax, the spike that we have seen is in our use tax, which is great. It's great to see that spike, but use tax makes up such a minor portion of that sales tax total, that we're up almost 51% in use tax, but that only equates to about $88,000, which is not significant when you look at the overall budget. So it's good and it's positive. I just want to caution just a little bit on how much excitement we've got in that. General fund itself clears $177,000 for the first 6 months of the year. Questions on that? Okay, I'm flipping to the municipal authority. We made money in electric, we made money in sewer, and we made money in trash. Water was the only one that we did not make money, but we budget, and we budget with that in mind because of the debt payments that come out of the water department. So total operating income, $1.4 million. That profit margin is about 25%, which is pretty strong. And we budgeted for a little over 12% profit margin. So we are trending above our profit margins on what we expected there. And once you take into account the administration revenues and our transfers in and out, we come up with $237,000 of net income. So we talked about over on the general fund side, you've got $177,000 of net income. You add your net income for your Perry Municipal Authority, you come up with about $415,000 of net income between the two. You take out that $375,000 windfall from the CARES, and we are basically at a break-even situation. We've got a net income of about $40,000. So we're good, we're positive, we're moving forward, and we're meeting budgeted targets. But as I start thinking about budget for next year, we're probably not going to have that CARES windfall. So we're going to need to look at what we can do to manage within means. So just for planning purposes. Questions on financials? Okay, that's all I've got.
Maybe this is a question for Larry. I've seen in here, Larry, that on a check registry, that we paid Ben Paso like $13,000 for haul brush. Are they done?
Yes. Yes, they've been done for well over a month. As far as Ben's concerned. We haven't, citywide, we have not.
No, yeah, I was just talking about our outside people.
Outside people, yes, we're doing for right now.
Any questions for Meredith? Thank you, Meredith.
Welcome.
All right, item 8. I know I got to read this in for the 15th time, but consider approval of ordinance number 2021-03 of the City Council of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, amending Chapter 12, Article 2 of the Perry Municipal Code 2020 by the amendment of Section 12-222 entitled Storage and Parking of Commercial Vehicles, Recreational Vehicles, Camping Trailers, Hauling Trailers, Utility Trailers, and boats in the city's residential district, permitting under certain circumstances the parking of commercial vehicles upon residential zone or residential used property under certain circumstances, and amending requirements for parking recreational vehicles, camping trailers, hauling trailers, utility trailers, and boats in the city's residential district, providing for repealer, savings, codification, severability, penalty, and declaring emergency. So, we're basically right back to where we were at the last couple meetings. I'll let Bryce talk about this. I know there was a couple items that he changed, but before we proceed, I know that Derek and I have talked about this a little bit, and so I talked to Brian Henry, which is here today, and Derek made mention about, you know, if he wanted to buy 4 or 5 side-by-side Razor dune buggy things, you know, park them in his house, you know, unless he can put 2 of them in a building somewhere that he's over his 3 limit. Well, I had a discussion a little bit today with Brian about that, and Brian says those things are exempt. That we're just talking about trailers.
I was talking about interpretation.
Yeah, well, yeah, we were talking about interpretation, I'm sorry. But, so, I'll let you guys, you and Bryce can talk about this, but I was under the impression we were talking about, you know, vehicles. I mean, Sea-Doos, and Brian said this guy down here's got 10 Sea-Doos in his yard. There's nothing we can do about it, because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about trailers and travel trailers, recreational vehicles. So Derek is right. We need to make sure we have defined how we interpret these items. So Bryce, do you want to talk about this and your changes, where you're at?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this. Derek's not wrong. There's a lot of interpretation. But, you know, we went from saying that, you know, we started out at kind of tractor trailer trucks. Were they allowed? Were they not allowed? We said they were allowed, then they weren't allowed, then they are allowed. Now we're back to they are allowed. And then you define, okay, well, what do you mean by commercial vehicle? And so we gave you a chart, which defines different classes of commercial vehicles. It goes from Class 1 to Class 8. Class 8 is a cement truck. It would include a tractor-trailer truck, a dump truck, or a sleeper cab. Class 7 would include a city transit bus. You know, you're going to define these by size or weight, or type, or class, or something. And that, of course, is your job. You know, I don't want to put it off to you, but, you know, tell us what you like. Now, it's not just commercial vehicles, because then you have commercial equipment. There's folks that have dozers and graders and scrapers. I don't even know the names of all of them that are on their residential lots, parked out on their grass or in their driveway. On top of that, you have, you know, RVs, you have camping trailers, recreational vehicles, and the like. We tried to provide for those under B, and I thought we did, you know, a reasonable job there, but you know, there's some even questions about that. So the way I addressed it is, okay, we're going to allow commercial vehicles. Are we defining it as commercial vehicles and commercial equipment? What are we including? Which is really a job for the council. Tell me what you want included. Because nobody liked the last weight limit. And then we had that hauling limit that didn't really work. And so really the way I did this ordinance was, you know, because it's not complete, it's, you know, tell us how you want to define this. And we'll tell you what probably shouldn't be allowed, which is any commercial vehicle or equipment that creates a site obstruction. You should probably only be allowed if it's a commercial vehicle, have one, but you may want to have two. To be parked anywhere other than on a concrete or asphalt surface. I'm looking at page 2. Be permitted to idle longer than required for normal starting operations as provided by the vehicle's operator's manual or necessary to provide for servicing at the proper servicing. Be permitted to run a generator. Have the trailer attached or unattached except when actively servicing the property. So, you know, that's what we provided for. We provide for certain things that even if it's permitted, those wouldn't be allowed. Also, any commercial vehicle permitted to be legally parked as provided in the section shall first apply for and be approved and constructed through own sole cost and expense in accordance with such approved permit. A curb cut, because these commercial vehicles are curb crushers. There's no reason to crush curbs out there. We may not even have curbs in some part of town, but in some parts of town where they may want to be, they crush curbs. And then we have a little violation section. So I have a little language down here, you know, this is work for the city council. We hate to do that because we really like to bring ordinances to you that make sense, that are together, but I really think that this goes into the whole issue of what you want the town to look at. In fact, you know, discussing this or trying to come up with something here is like making sausage here at the meeting. You know, we really ought to talk about what we want this community to look like. You know, what are the standards that we'd like to have for this, for the community? Because as I told you before, Brian, you know, brings up issues to me all the time. And we've decided we're not going to run them to you hodgepodge. It's just not working. You know? And it's not a good, it's not a good way to have our time, because it always looks like we're trying to put something over on the public, or trying to impose some more rules on the public. In this case, it's actually trying to be more liberal, you know. But And we probably have a planning session at some point that we come up. You know, everyone says that, you know, what your town looks like is indicative of folks wanting to come there. You know, that's one of the, that's one of the issues. They want to see a community that's clean, well taken care of, at least has some kind of comprehensive plan, has some kind of code department that's enforcing it. And I really think that hitting these things individually is probably the wrong way to do it. And we probably ought to step back and really discuss what you want the community to look like. Because then it will all kind of, you know, will all come together. And do we want vehicles parking all over the grass? I mean, do we want commercial graders and commercial backhoes and bobcats, you know, in residential property? I mean, where it's and I guess it's, you know, it's an unapproved home occupation. You know, unless they have another job site or another commercial office, I mean, they're just storing their, you know, equipment at their home. Is that something we're okay? And I'm not saying that isn't something that we ought to be okay with, but it would be nice if the administration knew, if Brian knew, so we wouldn't send out, you know, mixed signals. So with respect to this ordinance, and if we were going to really look at it, we would look at, you know, how would you like to define commercial vehicle? Would you like to only deal with the issue of commercial vehicle, or should we be talking about commercial equipment too in a residential area? Do you like the exceptions? Do you like the way A and B come together? Are we being too restrictive? Because, you know, the intent of this wasn't, at least on B, wasn't really to be restrictive. It was trying to be more liberal to the public. But is that really what we want to do? So I suppose I've talked long enough, but you know, those are my thoughts. But I'll tell you, it would be difficult for us. It's certainly difficult for me unless somebody's got some theory to zip together something based on what's sitting here. You know, we can sure try.
Well, go back to Derek and I talking a little bit. Derek and I, we talked about a certain person in this town that has some equipment. And I said, well, Brian said that he's not in violation. And Derek said, well, I talked to Bryce and he is in violation, I believe, or maybe vice versa, I don't remember. So, but what it was to do with is the interpretation of the code we got. You know, we can't have Brian out writing tickets for violations and then our attorney saying, no, it's not a violation. So whatever we do, we need to make sure we get it narrowed down so there's no question. And I think that's only fair to our code officer. He needs to know exactly what we're pushing.
Can I ask a question
Yes,
of
ma'am.
Brian? Brian, you have code books from the state of Oklahoma, don't you?
Yes.
And do they address that at all in those books?
The state does not have anything really adopted on commercial vehicles. Every municipality is kind of just shot from the hip as to what they classify. So every town is going to have something a little bit different.
Well, I personally felt like this was an overwhelming thing, and I noticed the picture we have in here and I had watched that for several weeks because I thought, what are they doing with all that equipment there? And I thought, well, they're working on that lawn. And they uprooted the tree, they took the tree out, the equipment still stayed there, but today, there's none of it there. And I drove on around town, and I was surprised at the number of residences that have trailers and trucks and even tractors. But, you know, I saw one place that had a tractor and a trailer, and they were both pulled in beside their garage, and they were really neat, and they were not offensive at all. I saw some places that had a trailer, and if the trash around it was cleaned up, their trash yard wasn't so trashy, the trailer wouldn't have been in a position. Does that make sense? So it's almost like we need to clean up the trash in the yards, and maybe we can see more clearly of what would be offensive and not. I certainly don't think that an 18-wheeler should be parked in town, you know, at a home or blocking traffic or anything like that. But to me, a lot of those trailers are probably trailers that people are using to mow people's lawns, to haul their lawnmowers and things like that. And so are they commercial because they haul a machine to go get paid for somebody's yard? And then you look within a block of the downtown square of commercial properties that's got huge vehicles that are almost blocking roads and blocking streets and not looking good. So it's almost like I don't even see where we could even possibly come up with anything that wouldn't be offensive to our neighbors and our whole city. I may be wrong, but there were just some that had several vehicles that their home was just trashy, and probably some of the vehicles were not even workable. I saw one vehicle that had been sitting there forever. It had a tar pack over it, and the vehicle had exposed, and I thought, well, if that vehicle was totally covered with that tarp and not half on and half off, and the trash around it was cleaned up, it wouldn't look quite so bad. But I think it's important that they don't block traffic. I think it's important that they're not parked in the streets. But how much can we tell people what they can do with their property and what they can't? But I think cleanliness, and I just don't see how we could even make an ordinance that would fit all those situations.
You have pictures, do you not? Would you pass those out? You've got three pictures.
There's 6.
Pictures.
I apologize, the second one I realized was a good one, and so it's gonna say 1.5. And I already made my copy, so.
I'll say, while he's passing these out, if that's all right. Gloria, appreciate the comments that you said, and Bryce, I agree with you. My thoughts would be possibly that at a planning session, we sit down with Brian, all just brainstorm and talk about a vision. And from that vision, these things would possibly be easy.
You know, you and I talked earlier today, and we both agreed that it's nice to have an ordinance that's black and white.
Sure.
So that what Brian is doing is helpful to the community. And not to take away anybody's rights or anything like that, but when you live in an incorporated city, you do give up some of those rights for other amenities that you get from police and fire and all that. And that's just part of it when you live in an incorporated city.
I agree. I would, though, if I wanted to get a semi, I'd like to go be able to find it and read it and understand beforehand what the implications of that are. And it'd be very clear to me. And the same thing I said to you, if I'm trying to do things right, let's make it easy to do things right.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why we have brought really a number of ordinances before you, was to clear up that language.
Right.
So that it's easier for Brian and the code officers to know what's going on.
No, I get
They
it.
need to enforce.
I guess, you know, I completely agree with Derek. My main concern, it would, well, I mean, it's always aesthetic, you know, we want our community to look nice, but the safety of the public. I don't believe that we should be parking large commercial vehicles in the street. There's just a ton of safety issues that go with that. some little kid run out behind a car, or someone's backing out around a trailer or truck or something, or someone's backing out, they can't see to get out of their yard, especially if it's a neighbor trying to back out, you know. So I think those things should be considered the safety hazards of parking in the street. I think that's a separate issue. And I don't know, maybe we have something, do you feel like we have something to deter that now from parking in the street, or no?
No, Brian and I both looked, Chief Thomas and I both looked.
Yeah.
There's not really anything, I mean, unless you're causing like a blatant site obstruction
Yeah.
that would just cause traffic to not be able to see under your schedule.
And Brian and I was talking earlier, just kind of off the record at City Hall about, you know, I think it's illegal to park a vehicle going the opposite direction of flow of traffic too. And if you look at those pictures, there is one there, you got a dump truck and trailers and stuff that are parked in. And Derek and I talked about also about parking vehicles too close to the stop signs and corners. You know, there's a lot of places in town that people park their cars and stuff in the street. I mean, that's a whole different scenario, but sometimes it's just too close to the corners.
All that, I mean, that rule was probably not written for semis.
No, you're correct.
The distance from the stop sign.
Yeah.
And even some cases, trying to get around one of those to get up to the stop sign.
Yep.
That can be, even in a working situation. I mean, with some of the construction, we've done sidewalk and different things, I've had some of those where it's hard to tell. But the whole street thing, like you said, is a different, and I haven't heard any objections to the street thing out of anyone around the table. I think that is probably something you can address, for sure.
So council,
I would think, I'm sorry,
go ahead, Derek. I mean, Curtis, I'm sorry.
I would think number 5 would fall into our, taking care of your lawn, wouldn't it?
That one I put in there just because those vehicles were specifically asked about. The ATV out to the right, I just wanted to show that that one was perfectly fine. Like, if you got, technically 20 of those in your backyard, I'm just gonna drive them by because it's not in the ordinance, I can't say a word about it. But the one in the weeds, that's technically a nuisance. Because any sort of inoperable vehicle, if any car, if I find it in that condition, can be called into question because it doesn't look like it moves very often.
But this ordinance doesn't address that, right?
Correct. This actually falls underneath the junk and abandoned vehicle.
Right.
I think the other thing that I was concerned about is, maybe they do have several of these vehicles and you say they're exempt, but what do they haul them on?
Trailer. Right.
So where's the line? I mean, if you have to have it to haul these with, but they're not on it, now it's not exempt.
Well, the ATV itself would still be exempt, and if the trailer's sitting there, it would still be exempt. Does that make sense?
As long as you didn't have more than 3.
Trailers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct, but as we sit here right now today, the ordinance actually says that you can only have one. So if you had, 20, you can only have one trailer to haul those 20 ATVs.
Now, is that trailer, a utility trailer, a boat, a travel trailer? Is that what we're talking about right now?
The ordinance says right now you can have, I think it's a camper or RV and one utility trailer. That is it.
And I think that's where we agree that the ordinance today is not written as we'd like it, but
The ordinance today is a lot more restrictive.
Well, this item 5, or picture 5, I see a whole lot more issues there than those.
They got those cleaned up, just focus on the ATV.
Okay, I'm seeing tires, and I'm seeing a lawnmower in there, and I'm seeing ATV in there.
Yeah, those were for the trailer.
Okay.
Well, if it was cleaned up and the lawnmowers were put behind the trailer and that other trailer, it wouldn't look so bad. That's what I meant, there was so many of them. If the junk was cleaned up, it wouldn't look so bad. If they would park them in neat. But I don't find, like, vehicles like picture number 1, I don't think those are should be in the city park, just to be parked in the city limits. I guess we could keep driving down the street or something, but I don't think, the same thing with Hooters, they have plenty of parking out at the city's corner, there are places for them, that can be picked up. To me, those are not city property conducive at all. But, I just felt overwhelmed today, and I thought, gee whiz, sitting on this side of the table's a lot more complicated than I thought, but,
Welcome to.
Well, you're doing fine.
Yes, you are.
I know, I come in agreement, that all agree, but just, thought, gee whiz, this is a big job.
So it appears to me that picture number 2,
1.5?
no, 2, well, number 2, not 1.5, but picture number 2 and picture number 5 have to be neighbors.
Oh, yeah? Didn't even catch that.
Because it really looks like that trailer behind that truck.
Yeah, no, they are, you are correct.
All right, council, we got other things to talk about this evening, so, would you like to let this ride for a planning session type scenario? Or we can have like a little subgroup talk about this and bring it back to the council. But I am not for continuing to have Bryce try to figure this out because that costs us money.
I agree with that. Brian, does ride until a planning session, until we can all get on the same page? Does that put you in a bind since the way it's written today is?
No, we have an ordinance.
Yeah, but it's not,
But we've lived with it for a long time now,
but
so.
we can agree that it's not necessarily ideal either.
No, I agree.
So I didn't know if that put you in a bind if we left it as is for now.
Not per se.
I think you probably have plenty, looking at some of the pictures, you probably have plenty of other things too.
Yep, grass is about to start growing.
Yeah.
And I will say that
So Larry's gonna put me in a bind?
Brian's done a great job of addressing our issues little bit by little bit. I've heard how he addresses and talks with our residents that will come and talk to him. That's what we really want, is when he sends a letter or talks to them, that we really want them to talk to us so that we can help them. It's not a, here, there's a ticket, pay it, and be quiet. This is, can we help you? That's what we're after. We're not here to just worry about enforcement. We'd like to get folks to help us so that they see where we're coming from. So Brian's done a great job. So
I
thank you.
appreciate that, Brian.
Can I clear that up? I have yet to write a ticket in this town. So, just want to point that out.
Oh, we need to talk about that
I
then.
was gonna say, yeah, right? He's like, yeah, that showed up on your email.
Well, that just goes back to show that it's more of an educational issue.
Right.
I mean, there are some people that just want to comply, but a lot of it's just educational. Anything else, council? Bryce, is that all right?
Yes.
Item number 9, discuss the COVID-19 pandemic. Any discussion? Any further discussion? All right, I'm going to let Bryce talk. Item 10, consider convening an executive session to discuss the appraisal and purchase of certain real property related to the Upper Black Bear Watershed Project pursuant to Title 25, Section 307B3 of the Oklahoma statutes as amended. Meredith and Dixie will be allowed to stay if they wish.
And also Justin Smith.
Oh, okay, yes, sir. Justin.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
O'Leary.
Yes.
Gilbert. Yes. Ahern.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Now.
No, we're good at that. Say, do I need to pull the koozie?
You said.
Okay, I'd like to, item 11, entertain a motion to reconvene in the regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Color.
Yes.
Gilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Brown. Yes. White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes. Item 12, taking actions with respect to executive session.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city attorney to write a letter to those property owners that have not come to a negotiated settlement with the city of Perry in regard to the Upper Black Bear Creek Watershed Dam Number 62 Perry Lake project. This letter will make a fair market value offer to acquire a portion of their property in fee simple surface only for the Upper Black Bear Creek Watershed Dam Number 62 Perry Lake project.
What is exactly what you said?
It's as legal
Do
as
you have a second?
second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Color.
Yes.
Gilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Brown. Yes. White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes. Item 13,
Motion to adjourn.
roll call, please.
Color.
Yes.
Gilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Brown. Yes. White.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.